There's something most of us learn early in life and then we never quite question. The way to handle anything is to work harder at it. See, it starts at school. Study harder, get better marks. Work harder, get the recognition. And it follows us into our careers. You hit a problem, you work harder. You hit resistance, you work harder. For a long time, this works. We get rewarded for it, we get recognized for it. It built our careers and earned us the seat we now hold. Then one day, we hit something that doesn't budge. We push harder and nothing changes. So we add more preparation, more hours, more effort, more of everything we know how to give. At some point, we notice we're tired, genuinely tired. The kind of tired that builds up when you've been doing more and more and more for longer than you should have to. And what most of us do next is the very thing that almost guarantees we'll stay stuck or exhausted or both. We work harder. Welcome to The Threshold, where we say the quiet part of leadership out loud. A show about the space between who you were and who the role asks you to be. I'm Amanda Ramplin. In the last episode, we sat with the threshold itself, the doorway moment when something is being asked of you that you don't yet know how to meet. Today, I want to stay in that doorway and look at the most common trap inside it. The one I see almost every capable leader fall into, often without realizing they're doing it. Because here's what we do when we sense the ground shifting under us. Whether the role is new or the team is shifting or the work is asking something different of us, we reach for the tool that's worked our whole careers. We work harder. We get more strategic, we take the course, we learn the new framework, and we double down on what we already know. And it doesn't work. Or worse, it makes things harder. So today we're going to sit with why working harder runs out, why the strategies that built our careers stop carrying us at a certain point, and what becomes possible when we stop trying to outwork the threshold. Let me tell you about someone. So she's a senior team member and her manager has just been promoted. She's been excited about working with him. He's smart, he's experienced, and he appears to be the kind of leader people want to learn from. Now, it's a Thursday morning and she's preparing for a weekly strategy session. She has a few ideas she's been sitting with, some thinking about a problem the team has been wrestling with for a while, and she's looking forward to bringing them. She walks into the meeting. Her manager already has a deck open. He walks the team through the strategy, the framing, the proposed direction, all of it. He's done the work. She listens. The deck is good. It's thorough. And she leaves the meeting with the ideas she's been preparing still in her notebook. Not because they weren't good, just because there was no room for them. She's not complaining. She likes her manager. But 3 months in, she started to notice something. The meetings are getting longer. They're getting more thorough. And the decisions already seem to be made before anyone walks in. And it's spreading outside the meetings too. Her managers started weighing in on her team, suggesting changes to roles she manages, sending notes about people he's never actually met. He says he's just trying to help. But what's actually happening is that the space she used to have, the space to think out loud, to lead her own area, is shrinking. Slowly and quietly. I wouldn't say she's unhappy. She's still delivering, but she stopped bringing her own thinking because there's nowhere to bring it. She executes, she delivers, but underneath, she's becoming quietly disengaged. Here's the thing. 6 months from now, when her manager asks her for ideas in a moment where he genuinely needs them, she may not be able to find them. Not because she doesn't have them, but because she's slowly falling out of the habit of generating them. What's happening here isn't dramatic. It's not a story about a leader who is failing his team. It's a story about a capable, ambitious leader who is overdoing the role he's been promoted into. Because he's at his own threshold, And the strategy that's always worked for him is to be the most prepared person in the room. He's not aware of it. From inside his experience, he's leading well. He's bringing rigor. He's setting clear direction. He's modeling the standard. What he can't see is that he's also, without meaning to, taking up space the team needs in order to grow. And the innovation his team would have brought, the fresh thinking he was promoted to develop, never makes it into the room. And the strongest people on his team, the ones with the most options, are the ones most likely to walk. This is what overdoing can look like from inside of the team. Not a dramatic story and not a crisis, just a slow, quiet narrowing of what the team gets to bring. And underneath it, a slow dilution of the autonomy they came for. I want to come back to the leader for a minute, because that's who you might be in this story. You're not the team member quietly waiting for room. You could be the manager who can't quite see what they're doing. And what makes this particularly hard is that from where you're standing, you're doing all the right things. You're preparing, you're being rigorous, you're setting direction, and you're stepping up. You're doing what you've been promoted to do, or trying to meet what the role is now asking of you. And quietly, you might be doing too much of it. What I keep noticing is that this trap shows up in a few specific shapes. Firstly, there's the over-preparing version of us. We walk into every meeting with 3 times the prep we used to do. We have answers ready for questions no one's going to ask, and we're so loaded with material that we lose the room. The very thing we're doing to feel competent is making us less effective. Then there's the over-functioning version of us. We're doing our job and half of our team's job. We've taken on the difficult conversations, the complex stakeholder management, the work that should be developing our direct reports. The team is dependent on us and underdeveloped. We're busy and indispensable, and nothing is changing. There's the over-strategizing version of us. We're creating frameworks, decks, and plans at a rate nobody can absorb. We're sending 3 emails where 1 could do. We're trying to solve through structure what only presence can solve. The signal we're sending, without meaning to, is that we don't trust ourselves to lead from anything other than perfectly designed scaffolding. And then there's the over-controlling version of us. We've started to check work that doesn't need checking. We've inserted ourselves into decisions that should belong to others. We tell ourselves it's about quality, but it's actually about anxiety. And the team can feel it. What's been eroded isn't just their autonomy, it's the trust between us. They can feel that we don't quite trust them. And before long, they start to wonder if they should trust us either. If any of these sound familiar, you're not alone. These patterns show up in almost every capable leader I've worked with, including myself. They aren't character flaws, they're the natural outcome of trying to solve the wrong problem with the right tools. The skills that got us here aren't failing. They're just not the skills the role is now asking for. And the harder we push on them, the further we get from what's actually needed. So why does this happen? Why do capable leaders with strong track records and decades of experience end up working harder and getting less? I want to offer a frame. Most careers are built on what we might call a competence curve. Early in our careers, we're learning. We don't know what we're doing yet. We make mistakes. We build skill through repetition and feedback. Over time, we get good at things. We become reliable. We become someone people trust. This phase rewards a particular kind of effort. The harder we work, the better we get. The more we learn, the more capable we become. There's a clean, linear relationship between input and output, and it lasts a long time. For most of us, decades. This phase teaches us something profound. It teaches us that we can solve almost any problem by working harder and getting better at the work itself. And then at some point, that stops being true. Usually it stops being true at a threshold, a new role, a new level of responsibility, a new kind of leadership being asked of us. The problem we're facing is no longer a competence problem, it's a different kind of problem. But here's the difficulty. From the inside, it just feels like a harder version of what we've always done. So we reach for the tools that's worked for decades. We work harder, we learn more, and we apply more skill. Nothing shifts because the threshold isn't asking for more competence, it's asking for something else. Let me describe what. The work of the threshold isn't about doing more, it's about being different. It's about how we hold ourselves in the role, how we take up space, and how we make space. How we make decisions when the right answer isn't knowable in advance. How do we steady the people around us when we feel uncertain? How we stay present when everything in us wants to retreat into competence. This is the kind of work that doesn't yield to study alone. We can read about it, we can think about it. Most of us have a shelf of leadership books that prove that point. We bought them, we read them, we underlined the good bits, and somehow we ended up doing exactly what we were doing before. Ultimately, we develop these capacities through experience, reflection, and the willingness to do something different than what we've always done. And here's what makes that so hard. To do something different, we have to first stop doing what's familiar. We have to be willing to set down the tool that's worked our whole careers, at least for a moment, and stand there empty-handed, without the prep, without the framework, without the over-functioning, and without the certainty. And that can feel terrifying. There's a real reason this feels so hard. The human brain is essentially a prediction machine. Its primary job is to model what's coming next so we can respond. When we step into a moment we can't predict, the brain reads it as a problem to be solved, not as a place to rest. It pulls us toward whatever feels known, even if what's known isn't actually working. So what's familiar feels like safety. The over-preparing, the over-functioning, the over-strategizing, and the over-controlling. All of these feel like productive responses. They feel like effort and they feel like leadership. But underneath, they're often something else. They're often a way of avoiding the discomfort of not yet knowing. I want to be really careful here because I'm not saying competence doesn't matter. It absolutely does. The competence we've built is the foundation everything else stands on. It's what got us to the threshold in the first place. What I'm saying is that competence is necessary, but not sufficient. At the threshold, what got us here isn't enough to get us through. The leaders who actually cross the threshold do something counterintuitive. They make more room. And here's why this matters. Our brains have a finite amount of higher order capacity available at any given moment. The kind of capacity that handles judgment, presence, complex decisions. It isn't unlimited. We spend it on whatever we're focused on. When we spend it on over-preparing, over-functioning, over-strategizing, and over-controlling, we're using the very capacity the threshold is asking for. The capacity to read a room. The capacity to make a difficult judgment call. The capacity to steady a team through uncertainty. These aren't separate from the overdoing. They're depleted by it. Which is why making more room isn't laziness, it's recovery. It's putting our capacity back where it actually belongs. And this is what a leader doing this looks like. They take meetings they would have over-prepared for, and instead they show up with their full attention and a clearer mind. They let conversations they would have controlled find their own shape, and they give their teams the difficult work, even when it feels safer to do it themselves. They sit with decisions that aren't yet ready to be made, instead of forcing premature certainty. This can be excruciating, by the way, especially at first. We'll feel like we're not earning our seat. We'll feel like at any moment someone will notice we're not working hard enough. But what's actually happening is we're making space. Space for our teams to bring themselves. Space for something different to emerge. Space for the kind of leadership the threshold is asking for. And here's the line I want you to hold from this episode. You can't outwork a threshold. The work is in walking through it. So if working harder isn't the answer, what is? I want to offer a few small experiments. Not steps and not a framework. Just things I've watched leaders try slowly when they start to actually meet the threshold instead of outworking it. The first experiment is to notice what we're reaching for. So when something feels off in our role, what's our first response? Do we reach for more preparation, more analysis, more control, more presence in places we don't really need to be? Just noticing this is a powerful thing. Most of us are so deep in the pattern that we can't see it. We think we're just doing our job. The first move is to see the pattern as a pattern. A simple question to ask ourselves at the end of any week where we've worked particularly hard: was that work the work? Or was that work the work I do when I don't know what to do? This question isn't designed to make us feel bad. It's designed to make us curious, because the answer often surprises people. The second experiment is to find the edge of our competence and stay there. Not push past it and not force ourselves into discomfort. Just find the place where our usual tools stop working. And instead of retreating into something familiar, stay there. Notice what it feels like and notice what wants to happen. Now, if you've ever run hard for a sustained distance, you'll know there's a specific kind of effort that lives at the edge of what your body can hold. Not the easy pace where you could keep going forever, and not the all-out sprint that empties you in minutes. The place just under that, where the body is working at the limit of what it can sustain, and everything in you wants to either speed up to get it over with or slow down and relieve the burn. Endurance athletes have a name for it. They call it threshold pace. And the entire skill is staying right there, neither escaping into a sprint nor falling back into something easier. The capacity to hold that pace is what gets trained. Not the sprint, not the recovery. The staying. Leadership at the threshold works the same way. The capacity to lead from the edge of what we know isn't built by forcing through it. It isn't built by retreating to what's familiar. It's built by staying. The third experiment is to do less on purpose. Pick one thing this week that you would normally over-prepare for, over-function on, or over-control, and do less. Not because less is always better, but because the experience of doing less and finding that the world doesn't end is often what teaches us that the overdoing wasn't actually serving us. The leaders I've watched try this are often surprised by what happens. The meeting they didn't over-prepare for goes better because they're more present and there's more room for the team. The team member they didn't rescue rises to the challenge. The decision they didn't force into premature clarity finds its own shape. Now, this isn't always true. Sometimes the prep matters. Sometimes the rescue is needed. But often it's not. And the only way to find out is to experiment. The fourth experiment is the slowest and the most important. It's developing a different relationship with not knowing. Most of us have been rewarded for knowing. Our entire careers have been built on having answers, frameworks, plans, certainty. So when we enter a moment that requires not knowing, we treat it as a problem to be solved as quickly as possible. We rush to the answer, we force the framework, we manufacture certainty. The capacity to sit with not knowing, to let it be there without rushing to resolve it, is one of the most valuable capacities a senior leader can develop. And it's one of the rarest. It doesn't mean indecision, and it doesn't mean weakness. It means the ability to hold a question open long enough for the right answer to emerge, instead of grabbing the first answer just to relieve the discomfort. This takes practice, it takes willingness, And it takes a kind of internal trust that the answer will come if we don't force it. That trust is something we'll come back to in episode 6 when we talk about the seasons of self-trust. Because this is where it lives, in the willingness to stand in the not knowing without panic. If you're at the threshold right now, here's a question I'd offer you. What are you reaching for when the work feels uncertain? What's your default move? More preparation? More analysis? More control? Or more presence in places you don't really need to be? More effort applied to the same direction? And then a second question. What would it look like this week to do less of that on purpose? Just once, just as an experiment. See what happens in the space you usually fill. Just notice what comes up when you imagine it. That's episode 2 of The Threshold. Next time, we'll sit with the performance of having it together. The exhausting work of looking like we've got it figured out when we don't. Why corporate culture rewards this performance, and what it actually costs us when we do it. If this episode landed, the most helpful thing you can do is share it with one person. Someone you know who's standing at their own threshold, working harder than ever, and quietly wondering why it isn't working. Sometimes the kindest thing is sending a message that says, this might be worth a listen. And if you haven't already, follow the show wherever you're listening so the next episode finds you. If you have time, leave a review. Your review genuinely helps other leaders find this work. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.